As I said, I moved the bill. Can I say, first of all, Minister, that some things are very straightforward and some things are right or wrong. There's no grey area. And when it comes to the issue of low-hour contracts, zero-hour contracts, if and when contracts, call them what you like, exploitation of people on those contracts is wrong. And abuse of low-hour contracts is wrong. And it appears that this is not contested, it's uncontested. Last April, when the Dunnes Stores workers were on strike, for the very issues that this bill seeks to address, many members in this chamber offered support, offered sympathy. They included Taoiseach Enda Kenny, who said that he supported certainty of hours for workers. The leader of Fianna Fáil, Micheál Martin, said he supported banded hour contracts and actually said to Taoiseach Enda Kenny during an exchange, what these workers need is banded hour contracts, because that was the demand of the trade union, the Mandate trade union at that time, who were lobbying all of us, both in government and opposition. And we had support from members of the government at the time and the opposition. A lot of deputies in this House, including myself, stood on the picket line with those workers at that time, because we were standing in solidarity with workers who were genuinely being exploited by an employer who was treating those workers in a very disgraceful way, despite the reality that that company was a very profitable company, a hugely profitable company. And there was goodwill for the workers, as I said, from all sides, and people stood on the picket lines with them. But yet, when Teachta Adams asked the Taoiseach Enda Kenny today would he be supporting this bill, he said no. And I think he said that this bill would be dangerous and that this bill would cause all sorts of problems for employers and potentially cause all sorts of problems for workers. And to be honest, the Taoiseach was speaking from the two sides of his mouth. And he's completely wrong, because this bill deals in a very real way, in a very genuine way, in a very practical way, in a very reasonable way, but in a worked-out way. It's a way to deal with the issue of abuse of low-hour contracts. And there are checks and balances built into the bill, Minister. And it was quite obvious to me that the Taoiseach had not read the bill, that he was given a view from somebody in government, maybe from some civil servants or whatever it is, but there was a decision taken just to not support the bill. And I hear all of the time from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that there is new politics, that the opposition has to listen to the government, that the opposition has to help the government, that the opposition has to support the government. And in the past, and Fianna Fáil know this, we supported a number of their private members' bills because it was the right thing to do, even though we had concerns in relation to some of them, even though we pointed out that we were not in full agreement with all aspects of them, that we would support those bills and we would allow the bills to go to committee stage where any differences would be ironed out. Indeed, one of their bills was labelled by the government as unconstitutional, and yet we still did the right thing. And we supported their bill because we supported it in principle. And we made the point that we won't play games with issues, that we will listen to everybody in this chamber. We will work with government and we will work with those, whether they pretend they're in opposition or not. We'll work with everybody to get things done for the people that we represent. But yet, Minister, when it comes to bills and motions that we on this side of the House propose, it seems that there is a different set of rules. It seems that the government can find any and every excuse not to support any legislation that Sinn Féin brings forward. You can shake your head, Minister, but this bill has been proved by the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. It has been proved by the Mandate trade union. And we ourselves have legally proved the bill. And there are sufficient checks and balances and safeguards in this bill that protects employers, but also deals with very real issues that affect workers in the here and the now. And yes, the government of the day can always come along and say there's a better solution out there, there's a better fix. Well then, show us what that better fix is. Come with your solution. We saw any amount of tea and sympathy for the Dunnes Stores workers. And it isn't just those in Dunnes Stores that are victims of if and when contracts and exploitation. It's rampant in the retail sector, in the hospitality sector, and in many sectors that are not unionised. Workers are being exploited. So it's easy to come in here, Minister, and for the Taoiseach to say we won't support this bill because we don't agree with aspects of it, and yet not bring forward any worthwhile solution yourself. Yes, when something happens and when workers are on strike and the spotlight is on a particular issue, there's tea and sympathy, but no action, no legislation, no solutions. And yet you say those of us on this side of the House are the ones who oppose for opposition's sake. It strikes me, Minister, and I said this in the context of a different bill recently, that actually that is the mantra of the government. It is the government who are proposing what the opposition are putting forward and not the other way round. I was disappointed that Fianna Fáil tabled an amendment to this bill, and I would sincerely say to Fianna Fáil, I would appeal to you to support the bill because it is worthy of your support. And as I said to you, and I say this directly to Daivd Cullinane, your leader, Micheál Martin, in addressing the Taoiseach Enda Kenny when those Dunnes Stores workers were on strike in April of 2015, and he quite rightly supported them, he quite rightly gave them sympathy, and he said to the Taoiseach at the time that we support banded hours. That's what the workers want, and yet that's what this bill does. And yes, there are concerns that Fianna Fáil have about our bill, and that's fine. That's what legislation is about. That's why we have committee stage and report stage. So why is it that the amendment that Fianna Fáil tabled had to be tabled? Is it that they don't want a bill that is proposed by Sinn Féin to be passed? Is that what this is about? Are Fianna Fáil playing games as much as the government are playing games? I sincerely hope not, because the workers, and I say this very genuinely and sincerely to members of Fianna Fáil, those workers who are being exploited right now as we speak cannot wait 12 months. They cannot wait 6 months or 6 days or 6 hours for us to sit on our hands and do nothing and kick the can down the road, as has been done with so many different issues. They want us to act now. They want us to pass this bill. And if we have disagreements, let's air these disagreements. Let's deal with them at committee stage and report stage, as we've always done in the past. Many people who've been here much longer than I have said that they have never seen amendments to bills that have been proposed by the government in response to a Labour bill last time round, and then the Fianna Fáil amendment to our bill being used before. That bills will deemed to have been passed in 12 months' time. Why is this being used? If it has never been used in the past, is this the new politics in action? That it's only bills that are tabled by the government and Fianna Fáil that are worthy of being passed and then properly scrutinised in the proper committees that we all sit on? Is that the new politics? I'd like to know, and hopefully we'll get some responses from the government and Fianna Fáil here today. But there are many, many workers in Dunnes Stores and elsewhere who are watching, and they want us to do the right thing. Today, Minister, a delegation of Dunnes Stores workers, the Irish Congress of Trade Unions and the Mandate Trade Union gave a presentation, or I gave a presentation, but they attended a presentation in the AV room on this bill. And the Dunnes Stores workers asked me to read out a statement into the Dáil record on behalf of the Dunnes Stores National Shop Stewards Committee, and I am happy to oblige, because they are the voice, they are the people that you need to listen to and that other deputies need to listen to. And it says, to all members of the Oireachtas, firstly, we want to start by thanking you for all of the tremendous support shown to all of the Dunnes Stores workers throughout this state when we went on strike last year. Our dispute with our employer is about decent work and security of hours and earnings for all Dunnes workers. 3 out of every 4 of the 10,000 Dunnes Stores workers are employed on what are called flexi-hour contracts. These contracts have a minimum of 15 hours per week. Despite this, most of us work many hours above that. Some of us work 25 hours and some work 35 hours. Some work more, some work less. But the average hours worked per week is 25 to 30. All we want is a new contract that reflects the hours we actually work, so we have an income we can depend on from week to week. This will give us confidence that we will be able to put food on the table to feed and clothe our families at the end of the week. At the moment, our income can fluctuate from €400 one week to €150 the next week, entirely at the discretion of a local manager, and this makes it impossible for us and our families to plan our lives. Many of our colleagues have been denied loans with credit unions and mortgages with a bank because of our 15-hour contracts. Bank managers look at our pay slips and they see that we have worked 30 hours a week for a year, for 2 years, sometimes 6, 7 years and more, but then see that the contracted 15 hours are the hours that we are guaranteed. And that's the guaranteed annual income, which is €9,000, making it impossible to give us a loan on that basis. Some of us have also been denied rental accommodation for the very same reason. This contract is not an accident. In our Decency for Duns worker survey of 1,400 workers last year, 85% of the workers surveyed said that allocation of hours is used as a method of control over us. For instance, after we went on strike on the 2nd of April 2015, our hours were slashed in a campaign of retribution by the company. All we were seeking was the same type of contracts afforded to Tesco, Marks and Spencer's and Penneys workers, who know from week to week what they will be earning. These flexi-hour contracts are about intimidating workers so management can have a compliant workforce. How can you complain about a health and safety issue or be confident about joining a trade union if you know your manager can cut your hours from 35 to 15, spreading them over 4 or 5 days so that you cannot access supplementary welfare support? This is what's happening all across the retail and the hospitality sector. Our demands have been vindicated by the University of Limerick report and the Joint Oireachtas Committee report, both of which recommended that this issue needs to be tackled. And we know that Dunnes Stores is only the tip of the iceberg. There are tens of thousands of workers in the same situation as us, and something needs to be done about it now. We are asking all members of this House to please support this bill. If we are serious about ensuring workers have some dignity and respect in their lives, then start by allowing us some certainty over the hours and income. Signed, the Dunnes Stores National Shop Stewards Committee. So I could not have put it any clearer than they did, Minister. All our bill seeks to do is ensure that the hours that a person works is what is reflected in their contract. That's all it seeks to do. It allows an employee to put in writing a request to their employer to move into the appropriate band, which is the weekly hours that they work. And it gives them certainty of hours, because they can and do fluctuate up and down, but mostly down. There are safeguards built into this bill. There are checks and balances which give an employer the right to refuse, and it sets out the conditions for that. And then if there is a dispute between the employee and the employer, it goes to the Workplace Relations Commission. Now, Minister, I cannot for the life of me see how that is a dangerous bill, or how that is somehow going to damage the economy, as the Taoiseach said today. That's why I believe he was speaking from two sides of his mouth. I'm sick and tired of listening to politicians give tea and sympathy to workers, and they will sympathise with them when they're on picket lines and when they're on strike. I said when I started, and I have 50 seconds left, that some things are either right or wrong. There's no grey area. There is no grey area when it comes to abuse and exploitation of workers. We've had report after report from the OECD, from TASC, from the University of Limerick, from many other organisations, which all point to the same problem. A growing problem with precarious work, the casualisation of labour, low-hour contracts, if and when contracts, zero-hour contracts. But some employers, not all, some employers, are using these so-called flexi contracts to exploit their workers. So this bill does not do away with flexi work, which is important, and it benefits some workers. This bill speaks directly to those employers who are exploiting their workers and saying that this will not be tolerated and that workers have a right to have contracts which reflect the errors that they do.
Thank you,
so
Deputy.
please stand up for those workers. Do the right thing, support the bill, and I say the same to Fianna Fáil today. I say it with sincerity. Please support our bill and support the amendment that we have tabled, and please do not play games with this issue, because it's far, far too important for those workers who need your support, my support and the government support.
Thank you very much, Deputy.